So my name is Mike Sanders. I founded Interactive Government Holdings in 2006. It's been a long, short 12 years. Currently, we have 6 prime contracts with the federal government, DOD, 4th National Guard, Department of Transportation, HUD, and with the Department of the Navy. We're currently have employees and are doing business in all 50 states, 3 territories, the District of Columbia. We've also done contracts for USA, Nigeria, and Uganda. So we have some OCONUS work as well. But I think what makes us unique as a small business operating in the federal space is that we operate everywhere. We have 120 employees in 88 locations, 8 back office staff, full-time back office staff supporting them right around the corner in Springfield. We do program management, administrative support. Like I said, across those programs, we do veterans outreach. We have a call center in Vermont we operate. And we're currently starting to use, they've been collecting data across these programs for years, but they've never used the data to affect any outcomes. So when we took over the program, one of the reasons we started winning some vets programs is because we started actually talking about taking their data and utilize it in a way which would be meaningful to affect outcomes, right? So if we have a veterans outreach specialist and he takes a veteran to sign up for VA benefits, in White River Junction, Vermont, right? And we know that based on history, if we call him 2 days after an appointment versus 3 days after an appointment, he has a 60% better chance of showing up. That's meaningful data, right? It affects an outcome. Now we know we need to call these guys 2 days after an appointment versus farther. So that's some of the added value things that we've been promoting as far as contracts go. I'm sure a lot of you, if you're familiar, if you've been interested or heard of contracts, you know over the last few years that you've heard of LPTA, lowest price technically acceptable. A lot of that over the last couple of years has shot the government in the foot with the old adage, you get what you pay for. In 2004, President Bush signed this executive order allowing 3% of all government spending to go to service-disabled veteran-owned businesses. I was in DC at the time. I was a service-disabled veteran, and I thought, oh, well, this is going to be easy. 3% of trillions of dollars, the money's going to fall from the sky. So I did what a lot of people did. I hung a shingle and then waited several years for a penny. But the thing within federal contracting is there's a kind of a high barrier to entry as far as the program goes. But once you get in and you have contracts for years. They're 3 to 5 years typically, and that makes every 3 to 5 years, if you're growing, nerve-wracking, but it also gives you some sustainability and it gives you some ability to plan and to grow. And once you get past that sort of critical mass point where you're able to pay yourself and your people at the same time, it's magical, right? Because for the first part, if you're bootstrapping, what you're doing is you're earning some money and then you're not paying yourself so you can pay your people. I've been in Guam 4 times this year. Most of you probably know they're moving the Marines, 5,000 from Okinawa to Guam. So 5,000 Marines, 1,300 dependents. It's a lot of money. They need haircuts, beans, Band-Aids, bullets, all that stuff. So I've been over there 3 times this year for industry days, just because what he was saying. They're going to spend $10 billion on a little postage stamp in the middle of the Pacific, and there's no other small businesses there. Jacobs, Harrison, all these other guys that are, multinational, multi-billion-dollar corporations are there, and then there's me. So the Osnabu guy over there knows who I am. All the small business people know who I am, and they changed actually the requirement for Guam. NAVFAC took the ability of large businesses to kind of fudge. It used to be a 20, give 20%, and large businesses would go, oh, I gave 20% of this part. For this opportunity, NAVFAC saying, no, you're going to show us in your proposal how small business is going to get 20% of the total contract value. So they took all ambiguity out of it. So within federal, there's what I always tell people, especially if you're starting from scratch and you're bootstrapping, you can climb one tree at a time, right? And you can, if you have a specialty, you're a shipper, right? And that's what you do in the military. Right, I didn't have a specialty. I was just dumb and didn't know any better, so I started a company, right? But if I had a specialty in the military, that's what I would have focused on. And you can get with people, and there's things that you can do ahead of getting out of the military that will not preclude you. Like you can, establish your business, right? You can get the things that you need to do to operate. That way you don't have to wait months after you get out. And I think he's probably a great person to help you with that, or people in your unit and in legal can help you figure out what you can do for each time. But I wouldn't wait until you were on final leave to start. If that's what you're going to do, I'd start preparing. I mean, you're going to need probably 6 months to a year minimum to win anything, if you're lucky. Probably 18 to 24 months. And then once you win, you're going to be waiting 60 to 90 days to get paid. Minimum.
Okay, I see.
So the nice thing is, right, when I first started, there was no small business protections in the FAR. Since then, since the early 2000s, now they have, you can call DOD and say, hey, I'm a small business, I need to get paid, and you'll get paid like in 14 days. If you press them, and you know who to call, and you know what to say. So people will tell you that 60 to 90 day thing to scare you, and it's possible. I'll tell you, the only person that's stretched me out 90 days is VA. That's the only person on a disabled veteran contract at the hospital that I went to in DC for 8 years. I won a contract there. Was so happy because I was like, Armed Forces Retirement Home Consulting. We were looking at moving the people and all this stuff, and man, they were 99 days till I got paid on that contract. I couldn't believe it. But that kind of stuff happens, and you need to be prepared for it. But there's ways that you can hedge against that once you get going. It's called Veterans in Procurement. It's a 3-day course you can get once you're started. It's a great course. I graduated from it in 2014, and basically it's 3 days of every single thing you need to know to run a government contracting company. They talk about indirect rates, RAPs. Number one, if I say I'm going to do something, I do it. And you'll find in contracting a lot of times, especially when I call it when blood is in the water, which means there's money on the table. All of a sudden, everything changes. Dispositions change. People, everybody gets tight. And if you just, you ask for what you ask for, and you do what you say you're going to do, and you don't get greedy. A lot of times, it will end up in federal contracting. You have to play the long game. 3 years is one buying cycle for the government. And if you make somebody mad that's a govy, they might be there for 20 years. And you could call that person for 20 years, and they kind of goes into rule 2. Be persistent, be prepared, and be patient. The very worst thing that you could do as a federal contractor is go into a customer or go to a partner and say, I can do anything. It means that you can do nothing. Have 3 capabilities that you tell everybody you can do. Even if you're the best administrative assistant, trash picker-upper, whatever. Let people know 3 things that you can do. If you tell them you can do anything, in their mind they go, they can do nothing. Especially when you have no experience. So come to the table, even if you were the number 1 seated clown at clown college, you're the best clown ever saw. Put me on the GSA clown schedule. I want every clown contract ever. And then from the clown contract, you go to party support, and then from party support, you go to admin support, and you pivot into some more respectable things. But what you have skills in when you first start, especially government contracting, is going to be, your franchise business plan is your skill set. And coming from somebody that didn't have a skill set, my thing that I sold was, you send me a piece of paper, I'm going to sign it right away and send it right back to you. I'm super easy to do business with. That was my whole pitch at the beginning. I'm not even going to read it. I'm going to send it right back. I promise I'm super easy to do business with. Don't worry, same day. Don't ever think if it's a contract that's been out for multiple iterations that no one's watching it or no one cares, because there's a long line of people that have been watching it for many, 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 many years. And that's kind of goes back to the SDVOSB thing when I thought it was just going to rain money. I didn't realize that there was some crusty old guys from Vietnam, World War II. They've been lobbying since the 50s and 60s for the SDVO to be set aside. So, me hearing about it and thinking it was so amazing, there was thousands of guys that have been working to get that set aside for a long time. So tell them you told them, and tell them again. That goes to proposals. I can't tell you how much small businesses lose because they're non-compliant on proposals. And it's such an easy thing to be compliant if you start off and you have the right process for going through the PWS. You will save yourself thousands of hours of time and aggravation by upfront making sure you're qualified for that opportunity. Security-wise, accounting system-wise. And those are things that get into the little later in the maturity of the business, but it's the things you want to be aware of first, because subcontracting, while it's not my favorite thing to do, it is a good way to get started, especially if you have relationships in the area. I didn't have any relationships, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anything. So I just had to bid small prime contracts, work them, and then use those small prime contracts to bid a little bigger contracts and a little bigger contracts until we started winning some large ones. And so the government can release requests for information, which are RFQs, right? RFI is request for information. And a request for information is simply your business information and what capabilities you have and what makes you think that you could do the work in which they're asking to get some information about. So if I need, two SharePoint developers or, two administrative assistants in San Diego, California for $19.20 a year, you tell me, well, your administrative assistants are going to be the best because, your qualifying process, your culture, how you pay, competitive benefits, your retention. In services, it's a little more difficult because there's not a secret sauce like, oh, this is our software, it's the best. So what you have to rely on is the other things, the sort of intangibles, your culture, your retention, how you're recruiting. One of the things we rely heavily on is the fact that we're in every state, territory, District of Columbia, and that 98% of our hirings come from within. They come from internal recommendations of people, which means that our people like working here so much, they're telling their friends about it to take the jobs, which is great. And the other thing that we have is, which we tout a lot, is incumbent capture. 99%. If we take over a contract, whether there's 173 people, 50 or 15 people, you're not going to lose the people that you like because we're going to pay them less or because we're going to cut the contract and make more money. We always keep all the incumbents because we pay well, we bid well. We do a lot. We always talk about our executive involvement, executive reach back, executive responsibility, especially for national programs. It lets program managers know that there's one neck they can wring, it's mine. Contracting officers know that if they need a decision made, it's going to be me that makes it, and I'm going to make it right away for them. Grow out of space, not into it. I can't tell you how many business owners have shown me these amazing new spaces they have, which are custom decked out with, their logos and really cool sounding conference rooms like Grow and Bark and Leaf and crap like that. And then we ask them for their pricing, and their wrap rates are 2.2. I mean, they're non-competitive anymore. And wrap rate's a whole nother class, but it's basically what you put on top of what it costs you to do business. I worked at Starbucks and my kitchen table, and then we sublet some space, and then we rented some tiny space, and then we grew out of that. So, and amongst all that, while we've grown into better and bigger spaces, our wrap rate has stayed extremely competitive because we've grown out of spaces, not into them. So the Inc. list is it's the 500 fastest growing companies in the country. You submit your revenue over 3 years, and so we grew 7,400% in 2016 and like 5,600% or something the next year, or maybe it was reverse that, but we were 49th out of 500 for fastest growing companies in the country for 16, and then we were 36 last year. So, right. But we didn't get 8A until we had won a $50 million contract already. Oh. And the reason, and I'll tell you, this was great advice I got from an old crusty Marine that was retiring from HUD. It was like his third retirement. He was pissed about it. He didn't want cake. He just got up and was like, if you got out of the military and just hung your shingle, don't go get an 8A. Go get some customers first. Because if you hang your shingle and you get an 8A, you're going to waste 4 years of your program time trying to get customers. What you should do is go get some customers, get some people that know you, then get an 8A, and then go back and you go, hey, look how easy it is to do business with me now.